What's up, guys? It's Mirage here. I'm going to give you my thoughts on Jesus is King, Kanye's new album, and also my top 5 lyricists coming up now. Okay, so let's dive into Jesus is King real quick. My favorite 3 songs are probably Water, Everything We Need, and Follow God. If you like straight bars, Follow God. He raps for just like 2-3 minutes straight. If you like the hits, Everything We Need, and then Water is like a catchy kind of like under the radar song that people aren't really talking about. So that's the tracks that I like the most on Jesus is King. So let's get into just the purpose of the album. So to me, there's a lot of debate on, has he really converted into Christianity? Has he not? Obviously, I can't speak to that. How would I know? But I think that it's definitely evidence of him doing a positive thing for the culture, which if you look at his last even 3 or 4 albums, they've been, one of them just sounds plain crazy in The Life of Pablo. So this is definitely, and he called that one a Christian album. And that was far from a Christian album if you listen to that. This right here is definitely a Christian album. I mean, it has everything that you would need to have to be a Christian album. I think it's a very powerful album. It feels short though. It feels incomplete. I wish he had Chance on it. Some people have said that they wish they had Kirk Franklin on it. I wish it had something, like there's so many great artists in, you know, that are Christian artists that could have put their presence on this. And even if you didn't want to go that route, Chance the Rapper has had some songs with like Jay Electronica where he just goes bar for bar and just murders it. And you know, so I feel like there's a way that you could have done some things with Chance on it or some other artists on it, maybe multiple artists. I feel like there's a way, like the very first song that just sounds like straight gospel music, he could have spit on that and did something and made it like a full thing. Instead it was very short, and especially since the album got pushed back since September. It's like you're giving us kind of like a rough draft of a project is kind of what I felt with it. Now it's good and everything and it has some cuts on it, but it's very, very short. The last song is like 50 seconds and it's just like, not even really a chorus, it's just kind of like a energy, I would say, to kind of end the album on. Now it's a good energy, but it doesn't feel complete to me. So I feel like it's missing some things, but for being what it is, it looks dope. The cover art is showing the vinyl, which looks dope. It's a blue color, if you haven't seen it. But I just wish that it had more in it. It's very surface level in terms of like your topic matter. Like he's talking about Christianity being converted. He's talking about things in Christianity, but it's very surface level, which makes sense because if he is a recent convert, like he's saying, then it's going to be very surface level. So there's no deep themes or testimonies or anything about his personal life deep in there. It's just really kind of just talking about just the very basics of Christianity and some of the themes in there. We have everything we need. I mean, it's all in the title. Closed on Sunday, you're my Chick-fil-A. Like almost to say like I want this and I can't get it because it's closed. And so he feels like, you know, the church is closing their doors on him because of his past. So all these different themes, which is kind of personal, but again, it's not a deep theme. Like he doesn't take that and go deep into that theme. It's just very surface level. The instrumentals, the production on it is great. I mean, it's Kanye, so you're gonna get great production. You're gonna get awesome drum pattern. All that stuff is in there. It doesn't sound like any project that I've heard from him. And as far as like anticipation for like, what does this mean? Now that he's converted, he's put out this Christian album, what does this mean? I think we have to kind of wait and look into his next album and see what that is. If you go back to your old stuff in the next album, that's going to be hard to sell people on that. It's kind of like, what are you trying to get the Christian audience on board? Are you trying to just completely spread your music to everywhere? Because I think that's smart. But like if you come out and you're talking about some crazy stuff on the next album, I think it's gonna hurt you. I really do. I think it's gonna set him back a little bit. It's like, bro, you just put out a Christian album. How you gonna do this? So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Lyricism on it, I mean, it's Kanye, so he's not worried about lyrical miracle in your swimming pool. He's trying to just do something simple. He wants to get the message directly to you and do it in a basic way. And he does that. He accomplishes that, but it still sounds good and it's still authentic Kanye. So that's kind of my thoughts on Jesus is King as a whole. Moving on. Somebody asked me, what are my top 5 rappers? And it's always hard to give this list because what's your criteria? I mean, is it, you know, artistry in terms of like your ability to create choruses, create singles, create albums, sales, like what is your criteria? Awards. So for me, I think it's just easier to separate it into different categories. So today we're gonna break down my top 5 lyricists. It's based on some of the recent stuff that I've heard and based on just how I know the artist as a whole. Obviously you only have 5 spots, so you have to kind of be creative. Some of them are gonna be redundant that you've seen in other lists, but I bet I have a couple that are gonna surprise you. Coming in at number 5, Kendrick Lamar, somebody who I look up to a lot. I think he's proven himself on the Heart series. If you've heard the Heart Part 1 and Part 2 and different things like that, he has killed it lyrically. On his latest album, he had a track where he just was rapping for non-stop for like 5-6 minutes. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Was it Blood? Let me look it up. And it says I'm offline. Why does it say I'm offline? Because Spectrum is trash and I'm actually online. Duckworth, which I should have known because that's an artist that I love. Okay, so Duckworth, he just kind of kills it and goes in on that track. There's tracks like that throughout his discography, and so you can kind of hear him lyrically go toe to toe with anybody. Also, he had the famous verse Control, which caused a lot of hysteria and stuff because he was, you know, kind of taking shots at different rappers in the game. So he can kill it. He can kill it at any given time. So he's number 5 for me. Number 4, this one might surprise you guys, Lupe Fiasco. The song I like to point people to for him is Dumb It Down. That song is literally about him having to dumb down his lyrics because he's so intelligent and the stuff he writes kind of goes over people's heads. So what does he do? He uses that as the chorus, but then all of the verses continue to go way above people's heads. There's stuff that I don't even understand in that stuff. And he's talking about, you know, the peerless is earless, is eyeless, which means it's eyeless, which means its ears reside where his ears is. I don't even know. Some weird stuff like that. Actually, I should pull it up because it's kind of crazy what he says. Okay, he says, I'm fearless, now hear this, I'm earless, and I'm peerless, which means I'm eyeless, which means I'm tearless, which means my iris resides where my ears is, which means I'm blinded, but I'ma find it, I can feel its nearness. Now, without going deep into that, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. This dude is a lyrical genius, and that's why he's number 4. Number 3, another surprise, Royce the 5'9". Now, some of you may have never heard Royce the 5'9" before. If you go way back, and still to this day, him and Eminem are friends, but if you go way back, they kind of started their careers together. And Royce, if you listen to some of his stuff, like that'll be like the meat of the punchline. It'll punch, and it doesn't punch as hard for me because I don't know who the person is. So I have to go look. He'll name people from, you know, history times. He'll name like famous philosophers. He'll drop names of people that you don't necessarily know. So that's the only thing. Number 2, a guy that is invisibly on everybody's list but doesn't get the mentions that he deserves is Andre 3000. Andre 3000 can kill any track, and I would point you to, there's a song on Erykah Badu mixtape that he destroys.
I often have awesome thoughts of tossing this softer palette, so when we fall, any wall, any stall, any crawl, any cause.
So a song's called Hello, and it's on Erykah Badu's, it's like a mixtape called But You Can't Use My Phone, and he murders it. And that's a example that there's many. Like, he's usually like sniper on the features, right? Like, he'll come on a feature and just destroy it. So Andre may not be on my top artists of all time simply because he's only, you know, he only has one full-length project of his on his own. The rest of his stuff is with big boys, Outkast. So it's kind of hard. Like, you could put him in the best duos of all time. But again, this is why you need categories to kind of break things up. But as far as lyrically though, he can lyrically go toe to toe with Eminem, which is why number 1 is Eminem. I know it's cliche. I know a lot of lists have Eminem on there, but Eminem is one of the few rappers who can do some things that have not just blown my mind, but have blown the minds of many different artists that exist today. I mean, if you watch, there's a documentary by Ice-T called Something from Nothing, The Art of Rap. If you watch that documentary, if you watch that, every rapper, they kind of bring up Eminem later in the film, and then they kind of talk about Eminem with different artists from back in the 80s all the way up to currently, and all of them shout out Eminem. And there's a reason for that, because he can lyrically do things that other rappers just can't do. The way he technically does things, the way he can still create songs that people love. Now, I personally think his songwriting skills are not as high as his lyricism, but that's just me. But a lot of people like his songs. Obviously, he sold albums like crazy. But his lyricism is what gets me every time. And he can write just one verse that can just destroy everything. He can be silly, he puts his personality in it. He can be serious, and he can write intricate things that, and unlike Royce, so like I said, him and Royce are kind of neck and neck to me, lyrically. But Royce name drops, like I mentioned earlier. And Eminem doesn't name drop. So all of his stuff is just potent lyrics that you can understand, but that he's gonna destroy everything. So anyway, that's my top 5 list. This has been Talk Tuesday. Peace.